Hi, everybody. Come on in. Welcome to our sleep webinar. We would love for you to pop in the chat and tell us who you are and where you are zooming in from. Oh, I see Ann Gilbert. Hey, Ann. So just pop it in there. I'm Amber. I am sitting in Sarah's seat tonight. I am going to be your facilitator as she is out of town at the moment. So we are going to have an awesome conversation. We've got Greg Johnson and Casey. Casey, I didn't ask how to say your last name, so I'm going to let you tell them in a second. Here to talk all about sleep and how we can help ourselves as well as our clients. Hi, I hope I said this right, Tavia from Columbia, Maryland. We got Erica from Wilmington, Delaware. All right, good deal. Well, let me just tell y'all a little bit about myself. My name is Amber Toole, and I work for SCW. I live in Ocala, Florida, and I have a studio here called The Training Tool. We help people get fit and healthy with our balanced nutrition and safe and effective exercise. So a lot of my clientele is over 40. So I work with tons of them to help them feel and look their very best. And sleep is something that I absolutely coach all of my clients on, and also something I'm interested in myself as I am struggling with sleep as well. Casey, tell everybody about you tonight.
Thanks, Amber. Hi, everyone. Great to be here with you. I'm really excited for the next 45 minutes we get to spend together to talk sleep, which is one of my favorite topics. My name is Casey Zavaleta. Amber, however you said it would have been fine, but Zavaleta. I am a fitness educator with DTS Fitness Education, which is based out of Toronto, Canada. But I actually live in Los Angeles, California. So it's middle of afternoon for me, not quite evening yet. Just a touch about my background and, my experience with this topic, I suppose. I began my career actually more on the cognitive and mental side of things. So I started off working with Toronto FC, which is the professional soccer team in Toronto, in something called their high performance department. And essentially in that role, we were looking at what are the high performance habits that athletes have off of the field that affect what they do on the field. And a big part of that, believe it or not, was sleep. We implemented a sleep program with the professional and youth athletes that was quite successful. We did some tracking. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about for how we can improve our sleep are the same things that we did with them. So that was fun, but then I transitioned to the physical side of things and was a personal trainer for many years, working with general population clients of all, ages, skill levels, and backgrounds. And I loved it. But I think the thing that I was most passionate about was how do I impact my clients' behavior outside of the gym? Because I'm sure all of you know that as trainers, we get, maybe 60 minutes with a client, which is a very, very small portion of their day. So very quickly, we realize that the things that our clients are doing outside of the gym have a huge impact on the results that we are going to get with them inside of the gym. So I really leaned into, how do I help my clients to improve their habits and their sleep and their eating and all of these things. Like I said, I am currently an instructor with DTS Fitness Education. I'm also the director of operations for the company. We run courses, continuing education courses for personal trainers. And we have a couple of courses that are relevant to this. One is our behavior change course, which I was the content developer for. It's an online course, and it does touch on sleep among many other things. And then we also have a sleep mini course, which I'm going to pop the link for that mini course into the chat. I think it's a really great way to just, quickly, it's a little like 3-day course to quickly get a little bit more information about sleep and how you can help your clients with it. So I'll pop that in. It's great to meet everyone. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to dive into the topic.
Thanks, Casey. All right, Greg, tell everybody about you.
Absolutely. So my name is Greg Johnson. I'm actually a personal training studio owner in Sacramento, California, Verimax Fitness. For the most part, I actually started in like the physical therapy, personal training realm, and then got some kind of unintentional niches of like golfers, law enforcement officers, state and county workers. And I kind of came into it looking, okay, how can I make these people's lives better? And obviously sleep and fatigue became a big thing, especially when we're talking about law enforcement officers and gig workers, city workers. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized, wow, these are the same issues that my general population is having. The potentially the type A's, the people who aren't getting enough sleep, the people who are working multiple jobs or are working stressful jobs. So I started digging more into like, how is this affecting everyone? And the reality is it's affecting everyone. And as Casey said, I mean, there's 3-day courses on this. There's week seminars on this. I mean, sleep is a big deal, and there's a lot of awesome research coming out. So I'm super excited to be a part of this. And yeah, so I'll put some links of as where you can find me. But yeah, Sacramento, California. But I'm trying to go everywhere.
All right, thanks so much, guys. So we are going to be talking about sleep, obviously, the missing link. And just to give you a little bit of information before we go around and answer some questions, the National Sleep Foundation recommends that adults get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. However, lack of sleep is common in today's society, and lack of sleep has been linked to a slowing metabolism, spikes in cortisol, and even chronic diseases such as obesity and diabetes. So I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask our lovely panel. I'll also be interjecting here as well. And you, our participants, if you have questions throughout our webinar tonight, please put them in the chat. When we have a moment and I can interject and ask our panel about what you want to know more about, I will do so. So please join us. We love for you to ask questions. Casey, I'm going to start with you today. And I want you to start us off with what are some of the detriments that can happen from lack of sleep?
Yes, thanks, Amber. Oh, so many. There are so many. So I'm going to give sort of this high level, broad overview. And then we can maybe, dive into the weeds of things as we move on. I think about the detriments from lack of sleep in 3 different categories. So I think of it in terms of mental effects, physical effects, and then emotional effects. When I think about the mental effects of a lack of sleep, I'm talking specifically about cognitive impacts. So I'm talking about challenges with paying attention and focusing on things for long periods of time. I'm talking about your ability to recall information. Things like this are sort of the mental impacts that we see from lack of sleep. And, really interestingly with this category, we're not always very good at noticing these changes. So these are the ones where there have been some really interesting studies done where people don't know that they're not focusing as well. They don't know that they're not as attentive to tasks, when they have those reduced levels of sleep. So this can be a really big one. And we see in many different professions now that there are fatigue management programs in place, with things like police officers and pilots and truck drivers and things like this to sort of mitigate some of these mental effects that can happen and can be very dangerous in those roles. So that's the mental side. And then we know that there are physical detriments as well, which Amber, you touched on a couple in terms of cardiovascular disease and metabolic disease. We know that sleep deprivation over long periods of time absolutely can lead to, some of these long-term health issues. We're also going to talk a lot about training and how, the physical effects of lack of sleep in the gym. And those can include sort of, lower performance during your workout, but also challenges with recovery afterwards as well. So those are kind of the physical detriments. And just really quick, an interesting study that I like to share. This was highlighted on a 60-minute special from a long time ago, but I think is still just so fascinating. So what they did was they took some people, healthy individuals that were participating in a sleep study, and they limited the hours of sleep that they got to 4 hours of sleep for 6 nights in a row. With previously perfectly healthy people, they were able to put them into a pre-diabetic state in 6 days. Again, that's 4 hours of sleep for 6 days in a row. These people were metabolically healthy prior, and they were pre-diabetic by the time that those 6 days were up. Wow, that's less than a week, and what a massive impact on metabolic health. So this is a real thing. This has real physical benefits when we don't get enough sleep. And then the final one, that category that I touched on, was emotional. I think we can probably all relate that when we have less sleep, we tend to be less patient / a little more irritable with friends, family, coworkers, etc. Right? Maybe even clients. Hopefully not. But you know, that those emotional impacts are real. We see increased anxiety levels, you know, higher rates of depression, things like that. So lots and lots of detriments from lack of sleep. Like Greg said, it's fantastic that, you know, this topic is really coming to light recently. So many people are talking about it, and so much research is being done on it, which is so exciting. But I would sort of give that as the overview of the detriments.
Excellent. Greg, would you like to add on to that?
Well, I mean, honestly, she nailed it. I loved everything she had to say. And a lot of the detriments, absolutely, when I'm thinking of them, all fit into those 3 boxes. I think a lot of what we find is, especially when it comes to the physical and mental, is there's a lot of catch-22s of what's causing what. And I think the lack of sleep can cause a lot of like the depression, anxiety issues, or you may have something in your life that's causing depression and anxiety that then affects your sleep. When it comes to the physical, again, Casey kind of nailed it, and I know we're going to be talking about it a little bit more, but when you're trying to recover, like that's what sleep is for. So if you're not recovering, if you've been working out in the gym like excessively and you're not getting anywhere, right, that may have to do with as much sleep as it might have to do with your nutrition, your training program. And then when it comes down to the emotional side of things, again, you may go into the office on a Monday and you can tell between the first couple of conversations in the morning who hasn't had a good night of sleep. So you got to understand that, like, when people aren't functioning on all levels, it can affect a lot of things. And again, to bring up a separate research project that I was doing when I was working with law enforcement officers, who are a lot of times they're overworked, their lack of sleep. Sometimes they may have PTSD or emotional distress, and they found that a lack of sleep is very similar to basically being intoxicated with alcohol. It has the same effect. So not sleeping for 24 hours has the same effect of being over the alcohol limit of 0.08. So think about the decision-making process that you have to make on a regular basis, whether it's you dealing with a client, like you were saying, or you dealing with a significant other, or with a coworker, or with a manager. Like things can go very bad just because if you're lacking sleep and you're irritable. So the emotional and mental side of things go hand in hand. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis can absolutely be affected negatively when it comes to lack of sleep.
Yes, I agree. And in my realm with the people that I work with, so the majority of my clientele is over 40 females. So I have a lot of women who are perimenopausal and menopausal. Their sleep is being affected during this time that they're going through. And I also have a lot of people who come to me for weight loss. So as I'm talking to them, a lot of times they'll come in and they'll be like, I'm not losing weight. I don't understand. I'm eating what I should be eating. I'm exercising. And when I start talking to them about something other than just their workouts and their nutrition, I ask them about their sleep. They kind of look at me a little bit funny. But one thing that we do know is that when you have someone who is not sleeping well, a lot of times what ends up with them is that triggers them to have cravings during the day. And they are craving things like carbohydrates, because carbohydrates release serotonin and help to create serotonin in our body. Serotonin makes us happy. That's our happy feel good hormone. So it's very interesting when I'm working with my ladies who are struggling with their sleep and these cravings and not losing weight. And we go back and we see that a lot as well. I do want to ask Greg a question. We got a really great question that came in. And since you said this, Greg, Barbara asked, what do you suggest for people with pain or PTSD, who cannot sleep and have severe insomnia. And they're trying to listen to music, but they're also on opioids for the pain. So they're struggling with their sleep. Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be the first to say this is dangerous as it becomes an aspect of scope of practice. And the biggest thing is understanding where the pain is coming from, the PTSD, the insomnia. I would highly suggest getting more advanced services for that. Obviously, as a personal trainer, if someone comes in with pain, one of the things that I'm going to be looking at is like, where are you pain? What are your sleeping positions? Like what's causing you to wake up during the night? I mean, in a grand situations, it's as simple as a mattress. But once you start talking about things like PTSD and stuff like that, there's a lot of challenges that go into that. I would highly suggest like talking with someone, making sure that someone is understanding what's going on, because I mean, think about what we deal with on a normal day-to-day basis. A stressful day will keep me up for hours when I'm thinking of a million things. So when you have something that's much deeper, past trauma, PTSD, it is extremely hard to sleep. So I would normally revert out and I would refer out to something like that, but that doesn't mean you can't start having the conversation and understand kind of what people are going through and see the best track to go from there.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the scope of practice for sure. Casey, did you have something to add?
I'm just nodding along with Greg. I think he nailed that. It's a challenging situation. Yeah, I think a mental health professional it's within their scope to deal with something like PTSD. And then, you know, if there's medications that someone's on that are interfering potentially with their sleep, it's not really within our realm as a personal trainer to address those types of things. So getting someone into a formal sleep study where they can go and, you know, have their sleep stages looked at overnight, I think is, you know, there's going to be a lot more that can be gleaned from something like that than we could do having a conversation with a client. So I think Greg nailed that. We always start with the basics and we have the conversations and we do what we can, but with situations like this, you know, I think it's useful to seek outside help. So he nailed it.
Okay. All right. We do have another question. I'm going to come back to it. I want to ask you guys, why is sleep such a crucial factor, especially for recovery from exercise? Who wants to take that one first?
Go for it, Casey.
Want me to hop in? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. So this is our bread and butter. The most important thing to understand here, everyone, is that the work that we do in the gym breaks down our body and causes an inflammatory response. So if you think of here as baseline, the work that we do in the gym actually brings us down to here. Now, it is that stimulus and it is the quality of that stimulus that causes the body to build back up stronger than it was before. But the ability to build back up happens because we recover well and because we sleep. So a lot of that tissue repair happens at night during sleep, specifically when we're in the deeper stages of sleep. So in stages 3 and 4 of sleep are really when that tissue repair happens and when our muscles build back up stronger. A lot of HGH is released. Now, also interesting, that deeper sleep happens earlier. It tends to be more concentrated earlier in the night. We cycle through the different stages of sleep throughout the night, but there just tends to be more that happens in sort of the first half of our night of sleep. If someone goes to bed later than normal, so let's say that normally your bedtime is 10 p.m. and you end up, you know, for whatever reason, going to bed at 2 a.m. You actually miss out. Your body doesn't necessarily make up for it. You actually miss out on a lot of that deep sleep that you would have gotten early in the night had you gone to bed earlier. So, you know, we talk about, I think a lot of the rhetoric around sleep, which is fantastic, is around sleep quantity, but the timing of our sleep, when we're getting to bed and when we're waking up, is also incredibly important, and specifically incredibly important for our physical recovery. That deep sleep, again, it tends to be more concentrated towards the first half of the night. If you get to bed later, you don't necessarily get to reap those benefits from those deep stages of sleep.
Good. Greg?
Yeah. So again, she kind of hit it on the head again. So it's kind of one of those, and the term in the industry is you don't build muscle in the gym, you build muscle from recovering from the gym, and you recover from the gym when you sleep. And I mean, all the things that she talked about, the things that happen when you sleep, including HGH production, I can't tell you how many of my clients bicker about whether it's HGH or testosterone or lack of this or lack of that. And the easiest thing you could do is get more sleep. And they're like, is there anything else? Can we do something different? I know, and the same thing, going to bed earlier, like I know if I stay up late, I'm either watching TV, I'm eating, I might be having a glass of alcohol, all of which are atrocious for my sleep. So I know like that's what I've learned that I'm like, okay, this is when I go to bed and this is when I'm optimal. But when it comes to like recovery with sleep, like Casey said, like you have a physical recovery when you have certain types of sleep, and it also allows you a mental recovery. And you may find that you're getting decent sleep for a certain amount of time, but if you still wake up groggy and fatigued, you may not get those balances of REM sleep, light sleep, deep sleep. So you can kind of find when you're good at getting those, because it's not just like body recovery, it's mind recovery as well. It goes hand in hand.
Right. Everything recovers at night or when we sleep. So important for us. Now, when you're working with your clients, how can you identify if sleep is an issue for them or with yourself?
You want to hop in on that one, Greg?
Yeah. So I jumped on the wearables early, and I used to use it as a badge of honor to where I could just sleep for 4 to 5 hours and I'm good. I work 16-hour days, no big deal. And now I'm realizing, yeah, I can function at 5 to 6 hours or 4 to 5 hours, but I'm not my best self. The other thing is, one of the things I noticed when I did start tracking the wearables, and it is almost obnoxious. During COVID, I'm going to admit this, during COVID, I developed a little bit of I'm bored, let's have a drink problem. So you can literally see on my wearables which night I had a drink and which night I did not. It makes that much of a difference. And we're just talking 1 or 2 drinks. And it is amazing how much those little things can like, oh, whoops, I need to change that. So my big thing right away is the wearables. And I know there's different ways of tracking it, but it at least gives you like literally a visual data point of like how you can do it. But if you find, I find my 5 a.m. Clients, they come in and they talk about, oh, I got a hard day at work. I'm really tired. I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night, but I didn't want to miss this workout. And in my head, and usually at some point it comes to a conversation with them, it's like, this might not be the best thing for you. The benefits you could get in here are not going to outweigh the benefits that you could have got from sleeping 2 more hours. So having that conversation and getting them to understand that too. But so for me, it's the wearables, and like I don't have a preference on wearables. It's anything that can give you data. And when I started doing that, again, working with law enforcement athletes, firefighters, things like that, they used to do simple as grip tests. Prior to wearables, one of the good ways to learn body, both physical and mental fatigue, was a grip test. When you're fatigued, whether it's physical or mental, you lose grip strength. So that was one of the ways to easily learn it. So just like most people can tell what they work on a regular basis. And once they start getting tired, once they start getting fatigued, once they start lacking, that's when you kind of have to start paying attention. Like, okay, what can we do here? And how can we give them the information where they can learn as well?
Yeah, I just got the Aura ring and I love it. And I always say this to my clients, what gets measured gets managed. So I have become obsessed. I've only had it, I've only been able to wear it for like 4 nights. So, but I'm obsessed with looking at my sleep. And because I struggle with my sleep myself, I'm looking for ways to try to improve it. I've been doing a lot of things, but it's really funny because it tells me at night, it comes up on my phone, it like buzzes me and it says, it's time for you to start getting ready for bed, Amber, and then I look at it and I'm like, yes, it is. And so I've tried using like some of their meditation and things like that instead of at night before I went to bed, I would be like scrolling through TikTok, and we know that's not good. So I have to say that when I do the little meditations before bed, bam, I go to sleep so quickly, all nights but one I have. So I love that, and like Greg said, doesn't matter what it is. It's really just getting that data so that we can look at it with our clients and then help them to understand it. And I think, Casey, this is a great place for you to jump in because we talked a little bit prior to getting on about what do you tell your clients once they have that information, but share with us about that.
Yes, I'd love to. So, awareness is huge. It's so powerful, right? To have this awareness of what is happening currently with your sleep. And like I said earlier, we're not always good at knowing that we're not sleeping enough because our brains are incredibly adaptable. And, we can function at some level with a lack of sleep, or even if our sleep is inconsistent. So gaining that awareness is huge. Wearables are great. I do always say though, it doesn't have to be the wearable. You can go to pen and paper too. Greg's a big fan of the wearables. I think they're great. I have a Whoop that I use sometimes. But it's also just, it's about the practice of becoming aware, I think, of what is happening in this area of your life. So even to jot down the time that you got in bed, the time that you got up, you can look at if that was consistent. You can track activities like how much caffeine did you have when, how much alcohol did you have when did you stop eating? How was your attention throughout the day? How was your energy throughout the day? Like some of these things can just be done in sort of like a journal format as well to bring some awareness. Now, once we have that awareness, it is paramount that we concentrate on changing one thing. What is the one factor that we are going to focus on right now? We're talking about, we're going to talk about so many awesome things that you could potentially do to improve your sleep, and your clients could potentially do to improve their sleep. They're all great, but there's a difference between having the knowledge of something and successfully implementing it. I like to say there's a gap. There's a gap between knowledge and success. We don't necessarily have the tools to bridge that gap. So just talking about, we could do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, all of these wonderful things for our sleep. It's great, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be successful at doing it. So identifying one specific thing, and then Amber, I love it. What did you say? What gets measured gets measured. Sometimes I say tracked gets managed, but that doesn't sound as good. So what gets measured gets managed. So then we hold ourselves accountable. And as a coach, I think you can engage in this with your clients. It's a great thing to, have one thing that you're tracking in regards to their sleep. And when they come in, you say, great, since our last session, how many times were you able to do that one thing that we talked about? And that really does help bridge that gap between knowledge and success for our clients.
And I know that it is dependent on your client and what you are specifically coaching them on. So I get that, but I would like to hear from each of you, and I'll throw in mine too, like 3 to 5 of some tips or tricks that you provide your clients to help them get better sleep. So I know there's a lot more than that, and I know it's specific to the person, but just give us some ideas.
Actually, only because you jumped in, I want you to continue this because I actually like your couple points, and I'll jump in after you, Casey.
Oh, you want me to keep going?
Yeah, okay. yeah. Because I liked your points that we talked about earlier, so I want to let you keep going. Actually, I do want to say first though, to dial back on one of the things you said. We as coaches, so for those of you who are coaches out there, like just because I like wearables does not mean my clients are going to like wearables. So a lot of times it's understanding what your client is willing to do. For me, I'm not a good pen and paper type of person. But if my clients like that, I'm going to take everything that I just stole from Casey and be like, oh, okay, I need this in my tool bag as well. So it's like learning what your clients are willing to do and then going from here and giving them those measurables of what they're fixing. But yeah, continue on.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That's it. That is the value of personal training. That is the value of coaches. That's something the internet is never going to be able to do for us, is understand what does our client need in this moment and what is the way that we're going to get there. So I love that you added that. Okay, as far as things to improve, I have some buckets again, but I'll try to keep them super succinct this time. Top things that I always like to start with. Consistency is number 1. Sleep consistency lends itself to creating a strong circadian rhythm, which is going to improve our sleep quality, and it's going to improve all of these wonderful things and benefits that we talk about with sleep. So when I say consistency, having a bedtime that's, within like 1 hour of itself every day is ideal. I know that's hard on weekends, but 80% method is okay. but within 1 hour, and then a wake time as well. That's within 1 hour. So the sleep consistency, I think, is just a wonderful place to start for most people, and really optimizes sort of that flow of cycling through our sleep and the sleep stages. So that's the first. The second is having some sort of bedtime routine. This does not have to be elaborate, and it does not have to be social media worthy, but these fun little devices emit blue light and are crazy stimulants for our brains. So although they're fun and they make us productive, and we could run a small country off of these things, they are not ideal for that 2 to 3 hour window right before bedtime. So just having something else that you can engage in, whether it's really light movement or reading or journaling, maybe it's just being with your family, being with your kids, something that's off of your devices at night, I think can be incredibly powerful as well. And part of that sleep routine piece is also not eating in that 2 to 3 hours before bed as well, which Greg touched on, but can be detrimental and mess with our sleep quality, our ability to fall asleep, and then the quality once we're asleep. The final little bucket is just our sleep environment. These are super easy, everyone. It's just like, is your room dark? Is it cool enough? If it's not, turn down the thermostat kind of thing. Is your dog in bed with you? If not, I don't want to say kick your dog out, but maybe kick your dog out. Just these little environment things. Are you managing the environment as best you can? I think can also be really good changes. So just to quickly recap, sleep consistency, and then some kind of routine before bed, and then managing the environment that we're sleeping in.
So I've just decided, I decided I like her giving the buckets, and that way I just get to fill them afterwards. Because everything I say, I'm like, perfect. This fits into all. Yeah. So just kind of, again, doubling down on a lot of that stuff. When it comes to routine is huge. And I think what I found out when I started tracking my sleep is I thought I was getting, oh yeah, I'm good. I finally get 7 hours of sleep. But once I was tracking it, I'm like, oh, I'm in bed for 7 hours, but I'm definitely not sleeping for 7 hours. And so that was one thing I had to kind of, oh, well, what am I doing? Why am I up? So part of that is like making sure you're getting that system in play when it comes to routine as well. I've also found, like, my big thing when I talk to people is hydration. Like hydration, every cell in your body has to be hydrated. So if you're not hydrated, you're not recovering, and it may prevent you from getting better sleep. That being said, if you realize, oh shoot, I haven't been hydrating like Coach Greg told me to, and you try to chug a bunch of water right before you go to bed, I got news for you. You're going to be up, and you're going to be awake, and you're going to have to go to the bathroom. And as Casey talked about, like blue light, what's the first thing you do right before you go to bed, or when you have to wake up and go to the bathroom, is you flick on this horribly bright light right in the middle of what would normally be a circadian rhythm. So it's like kind of finding out, like, how can I prevent those things from happening? And when it comes to like the routine aspect, again, I love sleeping in cold rooms, usually to the detriment of anyone else who's staying at my place. But what I did find, in not necessarily naming any specific products, but I found a product that actually sits on my bed under the sheets, and it chills the mattress. It is by far worth the money. But I again, tracking my sleep, I found that I could keep my body temperature down, and my sleep became so much better. So finding whether it's the blackout curtains or the sleep pads, yes, there's money involved. If you're comfortable with an eye mask, those routines to kind of cheat those codes of like, how can I get it really, really dark? How can I get it really, really cool? So learning some of those things for that as well. So hydration and nutrition obviously go a long way, but it's like, how can I manage? What am I willing to do to get in that perfect environment? And I know with me, what I found is my morning routine mattered just as much as my night routine, because if I didn't wake up and have that good routine, I can't guarantee that night routine is going to be done. So all of a sudden I'm home late from work, and now I'm thinking about, oh shoot, now I forgot I got to do this. I got to check in with this client. I got to reply to this email. So again, these wonderful little phones that Casey brought up, like I literally run my business on this thing. So to have it next to me at my bedside, that means I'm not leaving work. My work is always following me around. So it's like, I highly suggest people, like, if your phone is your alarm clock, get an alarm clock, leave your phone in the other room. That's a big thing because those things are so distracting. And even they do have the blue light filters and everything else and things like that. However, all you're going to do is stream through social media and something is going to trigger you in a good, bad, or indifferent mood, whether it's puppies rolling around or something negative in the news, like that is going to affect your sleep. So like all those things, they fall into those buckets, which Casey perfectly set up for me, but it's just like constantly finding out what works for you and like attacking those things one at a time.
Yeah, those are great. You mentioned the puppies, and I have two adorable dogs, and they sleep in the room with me, not in the bed, but in the room. So if they're shuffling around, it wakes me up. But we got a white noise machine, and I found I actually like brown noise better. That helps me to sleep, and it's kind of shuts out the outside noises and things like that that wake me up in the middle of the night. But all the things that you said, the consistent sleep and wake time is so important. I always share that with my clients. And I love routines, night and morning. Absolutely. You guys had great information. I want to ask you both about melatonin. If you have any information on that. Somebody asked, is it safe? And then someone else asked, would a time release or lower dosage around 3 milligrams be a good start? So could you share with us what you know about melatonin, please?
Greg, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to preface this like anything else is, again, there's a scopropathic aspect when we start talking about supplements. Personally, with a lot of the research that I've done, again, working with law enforcement athletes and things like that, I'm not a huge fan of melatonin. I think melatonin is created by your body naturally when certain things happen, including from when you wake up, when you see the sun, the circadian rhythms. My one nervousness is anytime you introduce a hormone into your body that your body's supposed to be making, it has the potential to affect other hormones, especially in the long term. What I also find with melatonin that's ingested is it's tricking you into feeling like you're tired. And what they found in some studies that doesn't necessarily guarantee to good quality sleep. I would even go so far to say alcohol is the same thing. It may give you a little drowsy, let you go to sleep, but you're not getting good sleep when you take it. So I've always been a big fan and advocate of magnesium when it comes to sleep supplementation. Most people are deficient in it. It does help give you better quality sleep. But when it comes to melatonin, there's a lot of mixed reviews out there. If you are looking at like sleep aids, including magnesium, people are starting to add melatonin to it too. So if you are getting supplements, make sure you read the labels. But I think there's other routes that you should try first, including hydration, magnesium, or maybe why you're having a hard time falling asleep before you introduce things like melatonin.
Nice. Yeah, just quickly, I'll just add a tiny bit. I think I 100% agree with everything you said, Greg. My answer is along the same lines. I just like to think of it this way. If our body is supposed to be naturally producing melatonin and we take melatonin, that tells our body, oh, I don't have to produce this thing. So if it's something that we're using as a habit, that can have detrimental impacts. Now, that doesn't mean that these things can't be used as tools on a case-by-case basis. We've been talking about it in the chat. Life happens sometimes. Sometimes you travel to a completely different time zone and your body's not going to produce melatonin right now, and you need it because you need to get to sleep, right? These are the situations when we can use it as a tool. Keeping in mind that I'm not recommending that anyone necessarily go out and buy melatonin and use it, but that's how I like to think about these things. Like melatonin can be a tool, caffeine can be a tool. I just don't want it to be a habit, because then I'm impacting my body's natural ability to be able to fall asleep itself.
Okay, thank you. Oh, just because, let me throw this in here because I know the answer to this, but you guys can also answer. Elizabeth asked, which magnesium? So magnesium glycinate is the one that's helpful for sleep. Am I right, Greg?
I was thinking the opposite. I want to say that's the one for poop, and if you're constipated, I believe magnesium citrate is the one for sleep. But I'm gonna do research on that one. But there are different types of magnesium. I will say most magnesium and ZMA supplements tend to have both. But you're right. That helps for constipation and it helps for sleep. 2 different types.
Yeah, you do have to look up, check me. I'm pretty sure, I thought it was magnesium glycinate because I thought that's what I take. What is happening, Greg? Maybe maybe I'm
I know
taking the wrong
I
one.
could be I could be backwards. I can't remember right
I
offhand.
think it's glycinate is the one that's recommended for sleep, but that's a
Okay.
new search. Yeah, I think.
So I want to answer a quick question. Haley said process of elimination. I like it, but how do they stay patient? I think she was talking about when we were talking way back in the beginning. I was going to say, Haley, that's a big part of coaching with your clients and trying to teach them to be patient and to trust that you're guiding them down the right path. She also asked this question, which I would love to hear what you guys think. Is it better to go to sleep hungry than to eat right before bed? So I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. And then we need to talk about caffeine.
Yes. I put an answer in the chat, so I'm just going to vocalize kind of what I said to this. Personally, so this is how I would approach it. Personally, if I'm hungry and it's in the 2 to 3 hour window before bed and I feel hungry, I'm going to eat. Now, I'm going to take that as information for myself that, interesting. Something about my eating patterns this day weren't adequate to make sure that I ate enough during what should have been my eating window during the day. Maybe I needed to have a bigger dinner. Maybe I didn't have enough meals throughout the day. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to use it as awareness to then make a change for the next day. I'm not going to go to bed feeling uncomfortable and hungry and feeling like, but this is a rule I have to follow all the time. Life happens, and there are situations when maybe you had clients till 9 p.m. and you should probably eat dinner after having all of those clients, and maybe you got your workout in too. So there's always reasons to break the rules. It's an opportunity to gather information and say, I know that's not ideal for me. So how can I make a shift for the next day so that this doesn't happen again? That's my personal take on it.
I honestly, I would say the same thing. Me being hungry at night will keep me up. I will not get good sleep. And I'm better off finding out why I'm still hungry that late at night. Maybe it wasn't enough fiber, maybe it wasn't enough vegetables or proteins, but it's like, yeah, like that, I'm the same way. I would just eat, know it, and figure it out the next day.
Yeah. Okay, before we have to get off quickly, I want to talk to you guys about caffeine because I think that we need to talk about it. It's the most consumed drug worldwide. And how can we navigate this and have some while still getting a good night's sleep? So,
Guilty.
Casey.
I'm guilty of this, so.
Yeah, fair, same. Don't take away your clients' caffeine. They won't like you for it. People like their caffeine. So here's what I will say about caffeine. The timing matters. For most people, a good cutoff is 2 p.m. during the day. Now, that depends on what your personal sleep chronotype is. So whether you tend to be a night person or whether you tend to be a morning person. And it depends on how quickly you metabolize caffeine. Everyone does metabolize caffeine at a different rate. Those people do exist. They can have caffeine later in the day and it won't affect their sleep. Don't assume that's you, but that does exist. So a cutoff, a general good average for people, 2 p.m. Let's try not to have caffeine. But otherwise, earlier in the day, again, it can be a tool if it's a habit and something that you're relying on to get you through your day, to get you through your client sessions, or that your clients are relying on for work. I like to use it as a tool, something I've decided on for performance, and then just you try to use that 2 p.m. cutoff if possible. Greg, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I am notorious on abusing caffeine. I'll be the first to say, and when opening my own business, I was surviving off it. I heard a great quote from Robert Yang, a nutritionist. And when it comes to like coffee specifically, if you're thriving off coffee or caffeine, then it's okay. If you're surviving, like in other words, if you're struggling and you need it to get through your day, that's a different problem. And this is one of those chicken or the egg type things. Are you having a hard time sleeping because you had caffeine, or do you need caffeine because you had a hard time sleeping? So again, it's trying to understand the balance. Like, why are you having it? Like with all the negative things that are on energy drinks right now, I find myself just grabbing one because I like the fizziness of it. So I found that just a sparkling mineral water did fine. So it was a habit to me. I realized I wasn't drinking it because I needed the caffeine. It was just the habit of drinking that something fizzy. So really find out why you're even drinking the caffeine. I mean, coffee is coffee. Energy drinks are energy drinks. If you're just drinking it because you're used to it, and then all of a sudden that cold brew doesn't do anymore, so now I have a cold brew in one shot, and I have a large cold brew with 2 extra shots. So like, why are you drinking it so much? Why do you need it? And do you need it, or is it just part of a habit?
Yeah, that's a great one. I absolutely have to quit, wait like 12 o'clock, or it keeps me up at night for sure. And along with my clientele that I work with, this is something else that I talk to them in their coaching is, if you're drinking wine at night because you're trying to go to sleep and then you're just dragging in the morning, so you're drinking the caffeine, so take a look at, are you, like you said, are you using it for a crutch, or is it just something you enjoy to have a cup or so in the morning? So good information. You guys, this was an awesome webinar. Thank you to Casey and Greg. Thank you so much to Carter, who is running it behind the scenes. I do want to let you guys know, Carter, if you can pop this information into the chat. Coming up, SCW has their certification smash. I'll be on Sunday. So teaching the nutrition coaching for fitness professionals. Awesome way to get your certifications, to get some CEUs. It's all online, and we have a full schedule packed up. You can see that Carter just put it in there. Also, Atlanta Mania is our next Mania coming up in July. If you haven't been to an SCW Mania, you are missing out. And you can also come to some of my sessions there. I hope you guys have a great night of sleep. Let's everybody go take deep breaths, do a little meditation, go to the potty before you go to bed, stay off those phones, and we will see y'all on the next webinar. Bye-bye.